welcome back to Legacy Politics, and we are going to be having an immediate reaction to what just happened in current politics in the United States. President Joe Biden forces employers with more than 100 workers to require coronavirus vaccinations or test employees weekly, vowing to block the new policy and terming it unconstitutional is what Republican members of Congress and state governors are appalled to do. This is probably the most unbelievable thing I've seen in the news thus far. Let's look at some immediate responses by the Republican members of Congress. Thomas Massie, who's a Republican from Kentucky, said this is absolutely unconstitutional. And then he actually just links a part of the news from the AP.com. Neil Dunn, Republican, Florida, he said mandates are not the answer. Getting your vaccine should be up to you and your doctor, not the federal government. And it's interesting he said this because Jen Psaki actually agreed with them. She said this. She said that we do not have the authority to put this on. And not only Jen Psaki, but even Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi said that the government could not mandate vaccines. And look what the president has done. If you don't believe me, watch this clip.
Here's the thing. We cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't.
This is literally probably the most unbelievable thing I've seen in politics in a very long time. The government has never mandated a vaccination with private businesses. That's just never happened. All right, Lauren Robert, who's a representative, I believe she's in Colorado, said all 9 million federal employees should consult with their doctor and make a personal informed decision about taking the vaccine. Instead, Sleepy Joe says take it or else. You don't lead by coercion. Biden has failed as a leader in every way. Robert Adderholt, who's a Republican in Alabama, said this is unconstitutional. The U.S. Constitution does not give the president this type of authority. Nowhere in Article 2 of the Constitution will you find anything that even remotely gives the president this sort of power. To fact check him, let's read Article 2. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution. The president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and of the Navy of the United States, and of the militia of the several states. When called into actual service in the United States, he may require the opinion and writing of the principal officer in each executive department upon any subject relating to the duties of the respective office. He shall have the power, by with the advice of the Senate, to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the Senate president concur. And he shall nominate, and by with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall then appoint ambassadors and other ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other offices of the United States. The president shall have the power to fill up vacancies, and that they may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commission, which shall expire at the next of their session. He shall from time to time give the Congress information on the State of the Union, which is the State of the Union address we all know about, and the President, the Vice President, and civil officer of the United States shall be removed on office of impeachment and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes, a misdemeanor. So this is the Constitution. This is exactly what the President has power over, and in no way does it say the President has the power to issue an executive order that mandates private businesses, their employers, be vaccinated. That has never happened in the history of the United States. Let's keep going. Arizona Republican Doug Ducey says, this is exactly the kind of big government overreach we have tried so hard to prevent in Arizona. Now the Biden-Harris administration is hammering down on private businesses and individuals' freedoms in an unprecedented and dangerous way. This will never stand up in court. This is a time where we have to fight back. This is unheard of. This has never happened in the history of our country, and I will be looking a few more here. I strongly oppose the Biden's authorization vaccine mandate on Americans and believe it's a massive government overreach, and I would agree. This is exactly what Republicans and some Democrats were scared of when President Biden took office. Kristi Noem, my legal team is standing by and ready to file our lawsuit the minute Joe Biden files his unconstitutional rule. This gross example of federal intrusion will not stand. This is Mo Brooks. He's another Republican in Alabama. He said Joe Biden mandates 100 million Americans get vaccinated. Elections have consequences. Biden's mandate underscores how important it is for Americans to know and weigh candidates' policies when voting. Liberty and freedom are at stake. And this is everything Trump was talking about. Former President Trump actually said this in a lot of his speeches, saying that if you vote for Biden, you're going to have national mandates across. You're going to have mask mandates. I didn't think anybody would think we'd have to get to a vaccine mandate, but this is a whole nother level of scary here. Representative Andy Biggs, I will be introducing legislation to block this egregious, I cannot say that word, assault on Americans' freedom and liberty. We must fight against these attempts to force vaccine mandates on the American people. Representative Barry Moore, this is blatantly unconstitutional. The decision to get vaccinated lies between you and your doctor, not the federal government. We must fight against the medical tyranny that dangerously violates America's individuals' freedoms. Dusty Johnson, the president's actions cross the line. I believe in the vaccine, but I also believe in a limited federal government. Effectively, this is a national vaccine mandate. Our federal government has never done this before, and it should not do so now. So those are some responses by the Republicans. Now let's look at actual Twitter responses, and I'll just be responding to a few of them. All right. The persistence. If the government can mandate you out of a job and companies can ban the president from social media, who's to say the government won't work with companies to ban you from banking or turn off your water, electricity, and internet service? And this is a great point, honestly. When does it stop? If the government can force you to take a vaccine and can force you to do all these things, or else you're not getting paid, you're going to be fined, you're going to be fired, that is an amazing overreach of government. And I mean, this is borderline communism. I mean, this is never what's happened. Persistence again. I will never forget that the Biden regime is closing down American businesses while the border is wide open. I will never forget that the Biden regime is forcing vaccinations while thousands of untested illegal aliens are pouring into our country. All right, here we go. Nick Knudsen said the right is belly aching over the coming vaccine mandate. It's only a mandate if you have a certain type of job, and if you don't want to get the vaccine, you can always find new employment. Problem solved. You're welcome. That is not true, because people work in companies with way more than 100 employees who definitely don't want to just change their job. It's not just changing your job, Nick. That's a horrible take. You can't just say that to the American people that says, oh, so bad, why don't you go work at McDonald's? If you have that perception on America, you don't need to live here. That is a complete wrong reception of America. Angela Belkimino, retweet if you stand with the vaccine mandate. I want to follow people who care about public health and humanity. It's not about public health and humanity, Angela. Nobody is saying that the vaccine is good or bad. They're saying that it shouldn't be mandated for you to work. That is unheard of. That's like saying everybody should have we look at Germany and Hitler. The government mandated that all Jews wear stars so that the employees could know whether or not they were a Jew or not before they hired them. This is communism. This is a complete overreach of government. Katika, Director Biden is going full Hitler, and still nothing from Democrats on holding China responsible. Amazing. Let's keep going down. I want to get some blue checks in here. This is a lot of non-blue checks here. All right, Representative Tony Lavasco, and he's actually representative in Missouri, state legislator. He said we must protect Missourians from this unconstitutional mandate. I need some blue checks. That's not a bad take, because a lot of people who oppose a vaccine mandate don't necessarily oppose the vaccine. So people could support the vaccine and not support the vaccine mandate. It should never be mandated that the vaccine should be had by people. That's where the debate lies. We can have a debate all day about whether or not the vaccine is good or not. Sure, we can debate that all day. But the debate here is whether or not the government, the president of the United States, can mandate employers of private businesses to have a vaccine, or else they're going to get fined. That's where the debate is, and it should never happen. Matthew Rosa, Biden's speech made history in the best possible sense. We're long overdue for a vaccine mandate. The howls of the do not comply dictator Biden crowd are infinital polemics to be ignored. I covered this for Ceylon. All right, Andrew Giuliani. Implementation of a vaccine mandate is another broken campaign promise by 46. The decision to vaccinate should be between you and your family, discussed with your doctor, not forced by the governor. We're getting to a lot more blue checks here. Yes, and what the broken campaign promise by him is he said he was going to be a president for all Americans. And I think that this is a obvious non-compliance with that promise. I mean, you cannot say you're going to be a president for all Americans and then just go directly against 100 million people who don't want a vaccine. We actually have 200 million Americans have the first dose, and we have the COVID cases are through the roof. Michael Knowles said, just ignore this power-mad senile doofus. That's a good way of putting it. That's how I would put it. Doug Collins, for an administration who cannot get all of the Americans out of Afghanistan, in what world do they think they will force 100 million to get vaccinated? That's another good point. No matter how many quote-unquote lives they claim to save, a vaccine mandate is not constitutional, period. Yeah, and here's the video about Nancy Pelosi I showed earlier. Joe Biden took no questions about his vaccine mandate. The president continues to turn his back on the American people. That's from the House Judiciary GOP. Bridget Gabriel, Joe Biden should be charged, impeached, convicted, and removed. Don't know if I agree with that, but this is a bit overstretching power, and you could make an argument for an impeachable offense, but I don't know. Regardless of your opinion on these vaccines, the vaccine mandate is unconstitutional. Period, and that's where I agree. I don't care if you take the vaccine. I don't care if you don't take the vaccine. I do not care. That should be your decision. That's the point. And the point is that the president isn't making it about your decision anymore. The president is now saying you have to get it. That is what's scary. That is where we have a government that is no longer a government and is now forcing its citizens to comply under their administrative agenda. That has never happened before in U.S. politics and should not happen. That's why we have a democracy. That's why we have the freedoms that we do. That's why we have state legislators. I'm not saying that colleges, private companies can't force their employers to get vaccinated. That is all legal. You can do that. But what's not legal is that a sitting president forces private businesses to have their employees vaccinated. That has never been legal, and that should never be legal, and this should be challenged by the courts. Libertarian in chief, forcing a business owner to choose between enforcing a vaccine mandate or paying for mass weekly tests is unconstitutional. Agreed. It's time for vaccines or testing mandates. Either we are the United States of America or we are a nation of people who only care about themselves. It's time to reject Trumpism and instead become the USA. Well, you're rejecting 74 million people who voted for Donald Trump in the 2020 election, so I don't know why. I mean, of course, as a Democrat, you're going to want to reject Trumpism, but vaccine mandates aren't the way to reject Trumpism if I'm a Democrat. Please explain to me, and I mean sincerely, exactly how these vaccine mandates will quote-unquote reduce the spread of the Delta variant. At recent quote-unquote very compelling research, vaccinated folks tend to be protected from serious illnesses, but often carry the virus and transmit it. So how? Good point. President Biden on extending federal vaccine mandates, quote, "We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us," end quote. So here's my question on that quote. If the vaccine truly saves lives, then why does the president care people are not getting vaccinated? That should be their choice. And honestly, and I don't want to just say like if they die, then that was like their fault, but that should be the logic the Democrats have. Like, why do they? Because if everything they're telling us is accurate, right, that if you get vaccinated, you're not going to die, then they should be like, get vaccinated, you're not going to die, but we're not going to force you to get vaccinated. That should be your choice. And I think that's why I have that. Because if your refusal has cost all of us, that means the vaccinated too. So that's an interesting point. Getting rid of Trump was the easy part. Repairing the damage he created is mind-numbing. As Harry Truman put it when informed of FDR's passing, "I felt like the moon, the stars, and the planets had fallen upon me. Go, Joe. We're behind you 100%. I'm not behind him. Bridget Gabriel. Joe Biden is a dictator and should be impeached. OSHA does not have the authority to force 100 million people to be vaccinated. Raise your hand if you support the vaccine mandate. Here's some dancing. Some people we've already read. So that's some immediate Twitter reaction. Let's see if I have anything in my poll that I sent out here. So we have about 15 votes in the poll that I sent out on Twitter. So 86.27% said no, 13.3% said yes. So we will see what happens. Here's this poll I put on Instagram. 94% said no, 6% said yes. Not that many people have seen it, only about 34. That will continue to go up. But yeah, so this is just basically a very, very, very relaxed quick video that I was not planning on doing. I did not plan anything in this video, so I'm sorry if I was rambling. But that is your immediate Twitter reaction and my response. My response to the vaccine mandate. Here's Charlie Kirk talking about Turning Point USA. Mandating vaccines for 170 plus full-time employees at Turning Point USA? No chance. We will sue you, Joe Biden, and win. Tons of people have already started suits. Let's see what Ben Shapiro says. Ben Shapiro says, under the constitutional provision that says if the states don't do what I want, I can just force them to do so regardless of my enumerated powers. Watch this video really quickly.
These governors won't help us beat the pandemic. I'll use my power as president to get them out of the way.
I mean, that honestly probably is one of the scariest things I've ever heard a president say, and I'm not even joking. That if the governors do not comply, I'm going to get them out of the way. That is a threat to our democracy. You know, the Washington Post, when Donald Trump was elected, they changed their slogan, and they said, democracy dies in darkness. That was the slogan they had throughout the entire Trump presidency. And this is a real democracy dies in darkness moment. It really is. This has never been seen before in the history of America, where the president forces people to do something. And my question is, where does it stop? More to come. Follow me on Twitter. I'll be tweeting. Follow me on Instagram, and there'll be more to come. Thanks so much for watching this video. Try to hold the comments a little bit, just out of respect. But do feel free to comment, like the video, turn on post notifications, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Legacy Politics out.